If you easily get scared, I suggest that you keep scrolling because the story that I'm about to share has to do with the Ouija board. When Ellie was about 8 years old, she was fascinated by all things paranormal to the point that her and her friend decided to make a makeshift Ouija board. From the moment they started to play, Ellie started to feel this uncomfortable feeling. This cold chill came over her, and she felt as if she was being watched from behind. Ellie's friend also started to prank her by moving the glass around, pretending as if it was a spirit trying to speak with them. So Ellie kinda got fed up and decided to end the game. She tossed the paper that she had made the makeshift board on under her bed and forgot about it, which was already a huge mistake. Fast forward to later on that night, they decided to have a sleepover. Ellie had completely forgotten about the paper under her bed. They decided to create a fort and just have a fun girls' night. For whatever reason, after they were done creating their fort out of blankets, Ellie's friend became extremely tired out of nowhere and passed out. Ellie, of course, didn't want to be the only one awake, so she started trying to shake her friend to wake her up. But no matter what she did, her friend would not wake up, like she was in dead sleep. Being though they were underneath all of those heavy blankets, Ellie decided to step out. The minute she did, she felt this unexplainable chill. She looks up across her room and sees it. There's a woman standing there with long black hair, in a white gown, just staring at her. Terrified, Ellie runs right back into the fort with her friend and tries to fall asleep. Now, the next morning, she's trying to debunk this whole thing. She's looking for shadows. She's looking for anything that could have been laid against her wall that could have made that impression. She can't find anything. Ellie says that till this day, she will still come across that same woman. She will see her at the weirdest places. The woman would just be standing there staring at her, and Ellie cannot figure out what she could possibly want from her. She just knows that from her playing with the Ouija board at 8 years old, she has ended up with a lifelong attachment or a lifelong thing that continues to follow her till this day. I'm just gonna get right into the story that they submitted, because this one is super scary. My sister and I were 13 and 15 when we got a Ouija board for Christmas. Our favorite uncle, who was a bit eccentric and loved giving weird gifts and telling strange stories, was the person who bought it for us. My mom wasn't too thrilled about it, but my uncle thought it was funny and said it, quote, fit our personalities. The first few nights after Christmas, we used it constantly. We spent half of the time pretending we were witches in the movie and the rest of the time just asking it questions. We even made up voices pretending to be spirits and laughed every time one of us made the planchette move. After a few weeks, the novelty kind of wore off and we stopped playing with the board. At this point, nothing weird had happened, so we just left the board in my sister's closet. Wasn't until a couple of months later that we decided to mess with it again. It was a Friday night, and we were home alone because our parents were gone visiting my aunt. We had just gotten done watching a scary movie and wanted to keep the spooky vibes going. So we decided to pull out the Ouija board again. My sister said that she'd been doing some research and apparently, we've been doing it the wrong way. We had just been following the instructions that came with the box. But apparently, if you really want to summon spirits, you had to do it a certain way. So we turned off the lights, lit some candles, sat cross-legged on the living room floor on either side of the board, and began. We placed our fingers on the planchette, and my sister asked the same question that we always did. Is there anyone here who wants to talk to us? Nothing happened. Hello. Is there a spirit here who wants to talk to us? We welcome you to communicate. Again, nothing happened. My sister closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and started asking more questions, pausing between each one to give the potential spirit an opportunity to respond. After several questions, my sister was obviously annoyed because instead of asking another question, she just said, quote, I guess you're a coward, and laughed. She took her hands off the planchette and said she's done playing and would rather just watch another scary movie. So we folded the board up and left it on the coffee table while we were deciding on another movie to watch. Suddenly, we heard a thud in the living room. We both went completely still and looked around, but of course, we saw nothing. We still had the candles lit, but we did notice that one of the candles' flames was out. We decided to reopen the board just in case there was a spirit in the room that wanted to communicate with us now. We placed our hands on the planchette, and my sister asked again, "Is there anyone here who wants to talk to us?" For the first time, the planchette moved, but only slightly. We were arguing about which one of us moved it because we didn't believe that it really moved on its own. But then it moved again. This time it felt heavy, which was very different from how a planchette normally glides across the board. We watched it move over to the letters I-S-E-E-Y-O-U. We screamed and pushed the board away from us. We were so scared that all we could do was stare at each other for a minute until I got up to go turn on the lights. As I was walking to the light switch, I noticed a flicker of movement to my left, but when I turned, I saw nothing but darkness. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "What?"
I thought I saw something over there.
I flicked on the lights, and of course, nothing. We blew out the candles and tried to laugh it off, assuming we were both just spooked from watching scary movies. Not knowing what else to do, my sister and I threw the Ouija board into our neighbor's dumpster, hoping that it would just stop whatever was going on. For a while, that seemed to work. We didn't hear or see anything until about 3 weeks later. Everyone in the house was asleep when I heard my sister screaming at the top of her lungs. I ran out of my room into hers, but my parents were already there. My mom was trying to console her, but my sister just kept screaming. Her eyes were wide open and tears were streaming down her face. After a couple of hours, she'd basically lost her voice and couldn't scream anymore. So she mostly just calmed down and was only crying softly. My mom finally got her to tell us what happened. She told us that she saw all three of us walk into our room and, without saying a word, float into the air and snap our necks to the side. She said she kept trying to scream for a long time before she finally could, and that it almost felt like a dream, but it was so realistic that she really thought it happened. Again, my parents blamed the scary movies we watch and banned them from the house. My sister continued having those dreams on and off for about a year until she finally left to go live with our grandparents and refused to ever come back to our house. Once she turned 18, she moved across the country and doesn't really keep in touch aside from the occasional birthday or holiday message. I tried to talk to her about what we experienced multiple times, but she refused to ever speak about it. So I don't even know if she's still having those experiences. One night there were a group of teenagers having a get-together when a boy named Mark brought out a Ouija board. Soon after, they made contact with something that called itself. One of the girls that was at the get-together had actually just recently saw a documentary where they talked about, so she knew exactly what they were dealing with. She urged them to cut the game off, to stop playing, but Mark and the rest of the kids decided to make a joke out of it. As he continued to make fun, the board spelled out that anyone laughing would have their firstborn perish. This automatically shut everybody up, and they decided to stop the game. It went as far as setting the board on fire, which is something that you should never do. Years later, 4 out of the 5 guys that were laughing, all their wives had miscarriages with their firstborn. The only reason the 5th didn't was because he was so terrified by the experience that he chose to never have children. Late one night, there were a group of soldiers that were hanging out, and one of them decided to bring out a Ouija board. They went as far as lighting candles around it to really set the mood, and very quickly connected to the spirit of a woman named Michelle. She then told them that both her and her boyfriend had passed away after driving home from a Grateful Dead concert, and that since they passed away, she had been looking for him but had not been able to find him. After Michelle went away, the group of men were actually able to make contact with the boyfriend, who told them to tell Michelle that he was sorry. Then they spoke to the spirit of an older woman who explained that the reason why Michelle could not find her boyfriend was because her boyfriend was in hell.